Alrighty, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to implement the logic for when you select a message or a contact request. So selecting a message is going to be very easy. We're just going to launch the message activity, but we are going to have to handle some results from that. So we will be implementing a onActivity result here. And for our onContact request, we'll just be displaying a dialog box. So for onMessageClicked, let's start off with an intent. So intent equals new intent. This for the context, messageActivity.class for the target activity. And then I'm going to say intent.putExtra, and we're going to do messageActivity.extraMessage. And then I'm going to say start activity for result, in this case, passing in intent, and then request show message for the request. Now for the request show message, I'm going to go ahead and create that constant real fast. So a couple ways you could do it. You could always use Alt-Enter and just select create constant field, which will be highlighted by default because it detects the naming. So we can hit enter and we can go ahead and give this a value, give it a value of 1. So this code up here just appeared at the top of the file. All right, now that we've done that, let's go ahead and just implement the onActivity result real fast. So I'm going to scroll down here to the bottom. I'm going to hit Alt Insert Override Members onActivity result. Now we've seen this code a million times. If request code equals request show message. Now what I want to do here is the first thing I want to do is I want to manually mark this. I either want to remove the message from my adapter or I want to manually mark this message as being read. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say int message ID equals data.getExtra, get int extra, and I'm going to do message activity dot result underscore extra underscore message ID with the default to -1. And then I'll say if message ID equals -1, return, because that data should have been there, but it wasn't, so whatever. Next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop over all of our messages. I'm going to say for I equals 0, I smaller than messages size, I plus plus. So I'm doing a linear search on my messages. Not very efficient, but it'll do. If messages.getID equals message ID, then we know we found the message object that represents the message that was just read. And now what I want to do is I want to say, well, actually, I want to alias out the message real fast. Let's do that first. I'm going to say refactor, extract variable, and we'll do message. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if result code equals message activity dot request image deleted. So if they deleted the message and then got sent back to the main activity, go ahead and immediately remove it. So I'm going to say messages dot remove message. Otherwise, I'm going to say message dot set is read to true. Now, whether or not the request succeeded to mark this as read, I do want to just go ahead and set as read as true so that our message gives you some visual feedback of what you just came from. And then I want to go ahead and say adapter.notify data notify data set changed, and then I want to say break. So pretty straightforward on our activity result. We just do a linear search. We set the message as read, or we remove it depending on the result. So yeah, that's that. Let's go ahead and jump on our onContacts. Well, actually, no, we could test this real. Oh, actually, we couldn't. We can't test this until we implement the message activity. So ignore me. Let's jump on to the onContact request clicked. So the onContact request clicked is going to open up a dialog view, but we're going to do a custom view, a custom layout on the dialog view, so we have to do things a little weird here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say view dialog view equals get layout inflator dot inflate r dot layout dialog user display, and then null for the root. Then I'm going to go ahead and say image view avatar equals image view dialog view r, or find view by ID r dot ID dialog user display avatar. I'm really bad at typing today. text view display name. I swear I know how to type. Dialog view dot find view by ID r.id dialog user display name. So we're aliasing out these guys so we can change how the dialog is going to be shown. And then I'm going to say user details user equals request get user, and then we can go ahead and say display name dot set text user dot get display name, and we can say Picasso with this dot load user get avatar URL into avatar. Now what we can do is I'm going to create a dialog click listener, but I'm going to do it manually. Or not manually, but I'm going to do it outside of the method invocation. So I'm going to create an instantiation of an anonymous inner type and I'm going to assign it into a local variable. So I'm going to say dialog interface dot on click listener, and I'm going to call this click listener. On click, not on cancel, on click listener. Click listener equals new on click listener. And then on the on click, I'm going to say if which equals dialog dot button neutral, then return. So if they clicked on the neutral button, just exit. Otherwise, I'm going to say boolean do accept equals which equals dialog button positive. So we're basically just creating a boolean where which equals if which is true, or if the button that was clicked equals the positive button, then set do accept to true. Otherwise, set it to false. And then I'm going to say, then I'm going to remove my contact request. I'm going to say remove request. Now, by doing remove request, because we're in a closure, that will bring or make this parameter final. So make that note up there. And then I'm going to say adapter dot notify item removed position. Now, here's something interesting I'm going to do. By the way, note the final on position now too. I'm going to say if contact request dot size equals 0, then adapter notify data set change. So here's an example. I'm not going to do this for everything because the complexity would be a little annoying to work out on video here. But in this case, it turned out to be fairly trivial to do this. Typically speaking, when working with recycler views, you should be explicit about what items are being added and what items are being removed. That being said, the way that additional view types in our headers work make that a little bit complicated. So what I'm going to do here is I say if our item was removed at position, or first thing we do is we remove the item at position, which triggers an animation. Then we say if the contact request.size equals 0, well, then we have to, actually what we would do is we would do adapter.notify item removed 0. And this will notify that now that our contact request size is 0, notify the adapter that our header for our contact request is now also going away. By being more granular with what you send the adapter for your notifications, the better it can provide animations and other UI goodness. Anyway, so now that we have all that stuff, let's go ahead and post our response to our service bus. So I'm going to say new contacts.respond to contact request, and I'm going to pass in this case, the contact request ID is simply going to be request.getUser.getID, and the boolean accept will be the boolean that we've already created, the do accept boolean. And that's going to be pretty much it as far as our respond to contact request. I do want to point out though that I should come in here, I should control click on here and oh, that's fine. Contact request ID I suppose is fine for that parameter name. All right, so now that we've done that, make sure to terminate that last curly, and then we'll create our alert dialog. So I'll say alert dialog equals new alert dialog dot builder, passing in this for the context. I'm going to set the title to respond to friend request or contact request. I almost did it. Contact request, and then I'm going to set the view to dialog view. I'm going to set the positive button to accept, passing in our click listener as the click listener. I'm going to set the neutral button, not the negative button, set neutral button to cancel, passing in the click listener. And then I'm going to set a negative button to reject, passing in click listener. And then I'm going to say set cancelable to false, which would makes it they are required to press one of those buttons. And then I'm going to say create And then I'm simply going to say dialog.show. And that is our dialog. In fact, that pretty much completes our main activity for now. Now, we're going to need a little bit more code a little bit later when we implement push notifications. But for now, this is really all we need for our activity. Let's go ahead and hit play. And I guess I can come up here and scroll up there if anybody wants to pause on that. But let's go ahead and see how this code works. So I can click on a contact and check that out. I get this awesome dialog, which actually doesn't look that great, probably due to insufficient padding. So I bet what we can do is we can close out of this, cancel out of that, and jump into our resource layout, dialog, user display, and we can come up here and we can add some padding to his relative layout. 16 dp sounds like good. Sounds good. Also, we can nuke this orientation as well, because we don't need to set into orientation if we have a relative layout. We only need to do that for linear layouts. All right, by adding some padding, it should look a little better, I hope. And it does. I like that a lot more. So if I hit reject, check that out, the items get removed. Now, I did notice that it was notifying the item removed on our adapter every single time, it seemed. Or maybe that was just due to an unfortunate miscalculation right here. Our notify item removed shouldn't be at position. It should be at position +1 because we need to account for the header. See, even if you have been working with the recycler view for a little bit, you still, and list views and Android in general, you still get confused sometimes about how those positions line up. Which is why I much prefer working against an abstraction that'll handle all that stuff for you. But in this case, I really wanted to show you guys how the low-level sort of stuff worked here, so you guys could build your own abstractions. Anyway, that should make it so, yep, that looks a lot better now. Now our header doesn't disappear, but it does disappear when we remove the last one. So it's such a satisfying thing. Let's do that again. I'm going to refresh here so I can get some contact requests. It's such a satisfying thing to see that nice animation like that work out so well. All right, I think that pretty much wraps up our main activity for now. Like I said, there's a little bit more we have to do on it, but that won't be until later. So for now, I guess what we're going to do is we are going to move on to the message activity where we finally can display the message. The whole point of this application, and we finally have everything in place where we can finish our last activity. So I guess we'll see you guys in the next video.